Good morning, everyone. We're back again with an amazing episode with the Greenstein channel. So today is a little bit different. My guest is, we are in a different setting today. And my guest, I'm looking forward to speak with my guest today because we have a lot of things to say about what they're doing in this place, right? Now, why it's a bit different is that a lot of time we have personal stories and life story, but this time around we are going to talk a little bit about an organization story, right? But mostly, before we go into that, I want to introduce you to this environment. So we are here in the Mountmellick Youth Resort Centre. So right now in the country, we have over 21 of those family resource center.
121.
121.
Yeah,
Oh wow,
yeah.
this is brilliant. 121 family resort center. So, but today we are talking into the Mountmellick. Mountmellick is a small town in the county Lish in the Midland of Ireland, and we are really looking forward for you to know a little bit about what the youth family resource center are doing and the impact they're doing in people's life, right? So today my guest is our very own manager, Mike Farrell, who's here to let us know a little bit about the community, what they're doing here, and the organization. But before we go to that, we really, really want to know a little bit more about Mike. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mike, I just want to say thank you for giving me the time today and welcome today to the Greenstein channel. So before we go into the center and the youth family resource center that you do here, I just want you to tell me a little bit more about yourself and as a manager here, but also mostly your upbringing and what brought you to become a manager in this place. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity as well, because I think sometimes with family resource centres, we're kind of the best kept secret in community. So
Yeah.
I suppose I suppose I'm working as part of a team to try to get the message out there of what we do and how we do it. But like you said, I'll give you a background myself. So my name's Michael Farrell. Most people call me Mike. My mum calls me Michael, and I know I'm in trouble when I hear Michael when that's thrown at me. So I've been working here in Mountmellick for almost 6 years now. But I suppose I started off as a volunteer here in Mountmellick as well. So look, I'm married to Eleanor. We started going out when we were in transition year. We knew each other for years beforehand. Okay. And we were going out for years before we got married. We've 3 kids, Ryan, Isabel and Connor, and all 3 of them go to school and live in Mountmellick as well. And I suppose that's relevant to why I started working here as well. So back to transition year. While I was in transition year, we were encouraged to participate in this thing called the GSTV Award, the GSTV President's Award. I think it would have been Mary McAleese would have been the president at the time.
Okay,
I could be wrong. Yeah, it's a long time. Show my age now. And there was 3 main elements to this. So one was you to pick up a new skill. One was you to organise this residential trip as well, which, helped with budgeting and all those bits and pieces. Yeah. But there was an element to it around community development as well. So where you had to go back into your own community and look at giving back to your community or doing something to help people in your community. So I originally got involved, Mountmellick Youth and Family Resource Centre. It started off as a Youth Development Centre, so it was called MYDC, Mountmellick Youth Development Centre. So back in 1998, again show my age, I started with a homework club. At that stage, they were in a porta cabin out the back of a building that was closed down at the time. Okay. The building didn't resemble the fantastic work that was going on within the 4 walls, and I suppose that's family resource centres in general. Like you might look at the building and they're a little bit rough around the edges, but what happens within those 4 walls is fantastic. And I saw that firsthand back in transition year. I suppose at the time I was at a stage in my life where a few bits had happened in school. So we lost a friend through suicide at the time. Oh, wow. And I suppose that was a challenge for our full year in school. It affected people in a number of different ways. And I suppose at that stage, alcohol and a few bits like that started coming around our age group. There would have been some level of drugs as well, but not a massive level. So I suppose while I was involved in this Gaisca Ward and giving back to my community, the youth workers I was working with at the time were aware of what was going on within the community. And I suppose they started to youth work me without me realising it. I suppose they would have known the pathway that was there, the pathway that different people were taking. And I suppose they helped me to see that there's, I suppose, the benefits of giving back to your community, the benefits of developing yourself, the benefits of helping people, and how rewarding that can be to yourself.
Okay.
So, like I said, I was working with young people, really enjoyed it. And on a couple of occasions, a youth worker pulled me inside and said, "You're actually quite good at this. You seem to be enjoying it. Young people enjoy being around you. Would you not consider a career in it?" And I suppose being in transition year, we could do work placements and stuff like that. So I did my work placement in a local school, really enjoyed it. So I started looking at teaching, nursing, youth work, social care, all those bits and pieces. And, you know, as I moved my way through the senior cycle of secondary school, I stayed volunteering in the Youth Development Centre even after the Gaisca Ward had finished. And I suppose I was like, right, I'm going to look into this. And while I was in Leaving Cert at UCEO, I applied to a few different colleges for, like I said, for teaching, for social care. My career guidance teacher encouraged me to apply for nursing as well.
Okay.
I didn't have an interest in that, but I applied anyway.
Yeah.
And I ended up in social care.
Okay.
So that was my qualification. I suppose following this, I went into residential care after college. I went into residential care for about a year and a half. Very soon within that, I realised just as a career, it wasn't something I was good at or something I was really interested in. It was very heavy, you know. I really admire the people who work in residential care, but it was kind of, I found it too difficult for myself. But I always wanted to do youth work. So while I was working residential, and even while I was applying for jobs, I was applying for youth work jobs. And it took me a good few interviews before I eventually got a job with Kildare Youth Services. I worked with Kildare Youth Services, they're now called InSync, for 13 years. Absolutely loved my time there. I suppose I finished there in a senior role as well. And picked up a lot of skills around what is needed to run an organisation, to manage an organisation. What it's like to manage people. And the job in Mountmellick Youth and Family Resource Centre came up then in 2019. I applied for it and I got it. And I suppose the main reason I applied for it was, I suppose I was working as part of a team in helping young people and helping families in another community, and I wanted to take what I learned back here. And also, I suppose I've said I have 3 kids, and I wanted to, I suppose, help the community that they live in as well, to help benefit them. So that's what brought me to here.
And there's something very interesting about what you're saying, is that I find that when I talk to people, whether being in this setting or maybe in general, there's always that one mentor, that person who see the best in you, who actually you're oblivious of your gift, right? You just love that from transition year. They can see how dedicated you were, but for some reason there's always that one person who see the best in you, who is very important, isn't it?
It is, like in youth work we call it that one good adult.
Okay.
And I suppose regardless of family setup, whether there's 2 parents at home or a single parent, or there's parents living in a different house, or whatever the setting is, all young people need to know is that they're loved and that they're valued. And I suppose that's what we try to do here as well, to try support families to get the message to their children, to their young people as well.
So one thing I want to say before we go further is that, so your background, so you grew up, you remember we talked about a little bit. So walk me through a little bit of the setting in which you grew up, because a lot of time not every children have the blessing to have good parent who mentor them, right? So how was your childhood like? And
so right back to growing up, I grew up in, I suppose, what would be called a target estate in Mountmellick, where there was a lot of unemployment, I suppose a lot of what we call now antisocial behaviour and bits and pieces like that going on. But I suppose I grew up in a house where there wasn't an awful lot of money, and I suppose that growing up in the 80s, that was the case for a lot of people in Ireland as well. I suppose I'm one of the lucky ones that I didn't realise how little money there was in the house till I was an adult, and my parents talked us through all the bits and pieces that they had to do for us to not realise how little money we had, you know. And I suppose in the lead into Christmas, my parents done an awful lot of extra work to try get a little bit of money. So you know, Christmas morning was fantastic, and we did the same Christmas morning as every other child. My dad would have went around our community and he would have brought these gas cylinders back to the shops, and there was a certain amount of money you got when you brought those back. I suppose some of our ties would have been pre-owned ties as well. We didn't know that at the time.
Oh my gosh.
You'd get off Christmas morning and there was ties everywhere. It was fantastic. And I suppose that's just one example of how my parents tried support us through the I mean, if we're going to call it something, it was poverty. But I hadn't a clue at the time, and I'm one of the privileged ones to you know that was the case. And I suppose that's what kind of brought me to this type of work as well, that when I realised the impact that poverty can have on a family and on individuals, we were lucky that we could just about make ends meet, but there's plenty of families that can't.
Couldn't. And that's very fascinating, because I see the heart, like not everybody wakes up and becomes self-aware of that you were able to see your parents' endurance, even though you realize it later on, but you were able to appreciate it, right? Because a lot of time people turn around and don't see it, right? And it's nice that you were able to see that, oh my gosh, I actually didn't know the difference. For me, I thought we were okay. So you understood really what poverty means, because your parent was so busy covering up the ends meet and not even making you feel. But sometimes it can be also a messaging, right? So you're not always comparing with other people. What do you think?
Look, I think when it comes to poverty and other issues that families face, there can be a stigma linked to it. And in my words, or my understanding of how some people view families who live with poverty is that, you know, they're lazy, they don't want to work. And that's not the case at all. In some cases, they're working harder than people who have full-time jobs just to try and make ends meet, to try provide the best possible life for their young people. And I suppose I really saw that when I came back to work in Mountmellick, that there's some families that have very little or no disposable income at all. And yet their young people have very similar opportunities to young people where there's more money in the house, you know. And I suppose there's a new poverty as well, that comes with kind of being a middle earner as well, you know, that there's, I suppose if you're earning enough money that you're not entitled to a medical card and then someone becomes sick, I mean, that can put an awful lot of pressure on families. Or if you have a job and then you need to go to a job, you've your car, your fuel, your tax, your insurance, all the bits that come with it. So even though you have a job, you could be circling the drain that is the poverty trap as well, you know.
The cost of living.
Exactly. So I just think sometimes people think just because you have a job, that's it. You're not living poverty. That's not always the case as well.
Before we go into talk about this amazing work you guys are doing here, there's one thing that I'm intrigued. What was it like the moment you realized, oh my God, actually we were poor? What happened? What made you realize that you guys were poor? Right?
My parents basically told us. They told us straight out, and I suppose it's when I think of it, it's hard not to get emotional. I realise how powerful my parents were to what they'd done in the 80s and 90s to get us to where we are, you know. And I mean, myself and my two brothers, our jobs that we work in, you know, we're kind of proud of what we've achieved and where we've got to. And sometimes a lot of times actually poverty can be intergenerational. But my parents, I was lucky enough to have parents that could support us to break that cycle.
That's like who are dedicated to make sure that you don't see it.
Exactly.
But isn't that funny you say they told you?
Oh yeah.
You see, because a lot of people, the realization wasn't like, okay, well, this is poverty. You had to be told.
Yeah.
So they work so hard to cover that bit and to give you a normal life, right?
Yeah.
Now, in fairness as well, the sense of poverty is also with comparison. Some people you probably have, if some people see, oh yeah, this also and so have better than me, that's when you start thinking.
And that's when, it was at that stage that I realised, so it would have been kind of mid-teens, and I suppose you're looking for some more stuff. The branded stuff. You have to have the tick on the side of your runners and all of that sort of stuff. So at that stage, I suppose once we're old enough to have the conversations in a really kind of supportive way, my parents would have introduced it into conversations. But I suppose, you know, my mum never forced us out to work or anything like that, but I knew if I wanted these extra bits, we had to go out and get jobs.
Do some jobs. Yeah.
And even though mum would say you're independent out on your own, she'd be the one to set the alarm in the morning to make sure you're up. She'd be the one to have your dinner ready when you came back home from work, all of that sort of stuff. So still support as much as possible. But that's it. Again, I suppose you can talk to people and try help. You know, what my mum was trying to do is educate us around the importance of working really hard.
Yeah.
And she done that by us getting out and doing it rather than, you know, she just lecture or whatever.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
She supported us to go out and do it, and then when we're out doing it, as much as possible, right in behind us, like she'd nearly come in and help you do the job if she could get away with it, you know. So and I suppose that kind of ethic, the kind of hard work ethic that they had, was passed on to us. And even though, look, as any family would struggle with money, myself and my brothers would struggle as well. But again, we were one of the lucky ones that we were able to. Yeah.
You have been surrounded by love and dedicated parents.
Yeah.
So, but then I'm sure through your job, you see that is not always the case for a lot of kids. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And I suppose circumstances can take over as well beyond poverty. And I mean, there can be illness in the family. There can be separation, addiction, all these bits and pieces. And sometimes families, no matter how hard they work, they kind of get to a stage that things are okay, and then something else comes up, and there's more of a challenge. And as well, I suppose a lot of young people that come into us, there'll be other diagnoses as well around ADHD or ASD or all those lovely letters that are thrown at young people. But that is an additional challenge to families, you know, so that if you have young people or children who need this extra support, if families are lucky enough to have jobs, there's all these other appointments that need to be to attend. And I suppose employers are aware that if there's all these other bits and pieces going on, it can be difficult to have. I suppose what I'm trying to say. I want to be PC, but I suppose employers need people to show up and to work.
Exactly.
But if you're a parent or a guardian and you're trying your best for your family, it can make it difficult to attend work as you know, all of the time. And that's additional pressure that can be put on families as well.
Yeah. So we are going to really talk about the amazing work you guys are doing here, right?
Yeah.
So, but before we go there, I just want to say how grateful I am that you've given me this time, all right? Because we have a common friend, and she said a lot of testimony about what you guys are doing in Mountmellick. You came back home and you didn't go to Australia or other place. You came back home. You wanted to give back to your community, and that sense of love that your family gave to you carry you back to home, and this is where you want to change.
Yeah.
Now we know how Mountmellick is small. A lot of time when we finish college, we want to go to the big city, but you just wanted to give that chance to your own community, and that's really commendable. And I just want you to remember that in every sense of the way, because it's not something that we do now. We have been induced to believe that success and big job and the big car, no, it's not to say you're not successful here, but I mean that you get to do a job that you love.
Exactly.
And that's where I want to go with my next questions. How does it feel to wake up every day and come to this, before we talk about what you guys do, and come to this and knowing that this is your calling? Because not everybody has that, you know what I mean? That a lot of us go into work, but it's not what we're called to do. And it's obviously 7 billion population in the world. We don't have that privilege to always do it. But how does it feel to just be there and enjoying every day?
Yeah, look, I love it. I love it. I'll talk more about my team in a little while. I'm lucky to have the team that I work with around me. But I suppose what drew me back to Mountmellick, and I did move to the city, you know, when you're in college, there's, I suppose living in rural Ireland, you do have to travel a bit for college. So I did need to move away for a while. But that, I suppose, and growing up, all I wanted to do was leave Mountmellick, like you said yourself.
Yes, I know. That's what I wanted to bring. I want to bring that because I'm like, there's definitely had to be a moment where it's like, I'm leaving this place, because we all did that anyway.
That's it. Yeah. So look, I went down to Waterford for college, and then I moved to Dublin for work. And I suppose I was part of a community in Waterford. I had close friends and that you can, you know, you meet people and get to know people through college. But when you move to Dublin for work, it's a little bit more difficult to meet people. You walk down the street and say hello to people, and they look at you like you've two heads, you know. Whereas in Mountmellick, you know, most people, everyone kind of knows everyone, you know. So I suppose while I was away, I realised the sense of community that exists here in Mountmellick, and you know, it exists in loads of other towns in Ireland as well. And I suppose I wanted to be part of it. With my kids going to school here and starting to be involved in clubs and that, I suppose I started to get to know other people as well. That I, you know, would have moved the community while I was away. But I suppose just to be doing work to help people, and people don't have to say thanks to you. You know, you can see it in their face that they're grateful that a service like ourselves exists here. But as an individual, there are times you feel proud that you've done something small just to give a bit of a dig out to either an individual or to a family. Just so life is that little bit easier for them, you know. And you don't go in and fix things for people. You kind of support them to come up with their own solutions and to deal with what's going on. But yeah, the sense of community here is unreal.
It's unreal,
and I love being part of it. Even just like my kids hate going to the shop with me because I'll always meet someone that I've
worked with,
worked with, or I know from the town or whatever. It's never in and out. There's always someone to stop and say hello to and chat and just check in. And even though we know people and their families, there's so many people that also ask about you and your family and how things are as well. You know,
because they get to
really
worry about
people.
it, because there's a weight on, you know.
Exactly.
Like this job is not just doing numbers, it's dealing with people's emotions.
Exactly.
And I do sense that with you. Like the first time we met, I was really touched by the emotion involved into.
That's it, and I'm conscious of the camera on me as well. I'm trying. Look, I'm an emotional person. I'm trying my best to hold it back.
Don't worry, because I think emotion is what we need right now. Right? I 100%. Think we are taught to train our emotion to be different. You know, and it's the heart that you have that is transpired. The way you feel right now and talking about it is what seems to be transferred into what you do with them.
And that's it. And like the people I work with, my team, like I mean, we're all in this job for the right reason. If we were in it for the money, we'd be gone long ago, because it is, I suppose, the community and youth sector is an underpaid sector in the, you know, in the country. So I'm lucky enough to work with a group of people who really want to make a difference, who really want to help people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the job easier as well. You know, that if people were only doing it for the money, like I said, they wouldn't last. It'd be really difficult to work with them as well, because it's a challenging job. It's not, you know, helping people is rewarding, but
it's emotionally draining.
It's emotionally draining, and it's difficult. And there are times we come up against challenging behaviours as well, you know, especially in
autism.
youth groups, exactly. So it's that's those evenings when you go home and you've had maybe 18 young people running around the place, absolutely wrecking the place. When you go home, you realise, geez, that was tough. That was, you know,
a tough day.
a tough day.
Yeah.
But then when you get a chance to reflect on that, you can go, geez, wasn't it brilliant that there's a safe environment in Mountmellick that young people can come and run around and do what they want to do.
Can do,
you know, in a safe way.
Right, so we are back here now to have you heard a lot about Mike Farrell and his upbringing and as a manager, but we need to talk about the Mountmellick Youth Family Resource Centre. This is just an amazing journey, because I hear a little bit and I read a little bit, but sometimes reading is not enough. So Mike is going to go through what they do here, the service they provide, and how it evolves around the country as well, because as you heard earlier, it's 121 places. And we don't hear enough about this kind of services, because family, especially in this current climate, are going through a lot. And it's not just the financial aspect, but it's a lot of issues like health issues, children who are struggling with whatever condition they have, and families struggling in this current day and age where people do not have, you know, in the olden days we had support, like you have your neighbor helping you around, but things have changed, and it's good to have a result where people can always, like a sounding board, where they can always come and get their support. So now we're going back with Mike. And so, Mike, please tell us a little bit about this center and in general about the services across the country and what they do. So,
that's it. It's just interesting. You reminded me of the conversation that we had the other day as well about how communities used to work together. And remember, I gave you the example of when we were getting turf home as a child. Yeah, loads of the neighbours would come out and help. I suppose with communities moving around and people moving into communities and that, it is a little bit more separated than it would have been kind of when we were growing up, you know. So
yeah, that's it.
It's, I suppose, some of the work that we do is around bringing that community back, community element or community development back into it as well. So look, if I start just with the broader side of things, there's 121 FRCs throughout the country, all existing in individual communities, and I suppose there's no two FRCs that are exactly the same. I suppose what the FRCs do is work towards meeting the needs of their community. So some of the work that they do is called, you know, it's a universal approach. So where we advertise different programs or different community groups where people can come and you know, just be part of their community, get involved, get to know people. And then a lot of our work is targeted as well. So where we recognise that there is a need within the community and we put a service in place to meet that need. So Family Resource Centre started, I think last year was 25 years, so they're around a while. I didn't realise they were around so long till I started working here. So Family Resource Centres have been doing fantastic work in Ireland for a number of different years. The Family Resource Centre programme has grown. It started off that there was only a few Family Resource Centres speckled around the country. There's now 121, like I said. Soon to be 5 new ones as well. At the minute, different organisations are applying to become a Family Resource Centre. So yeah, there's bits and pieces of work going on around there. So other communities will benefit from the services that Family Resource Centres can offer. So what we do here, I suppose...
Before we go about what you're doing here, so you say that, so is it a government initiative or is it just an independent initiative that are funded by government? So how, like the idea of Family Resource Centre, can I just come and say I created one, or how does that work out?
No, so I suppose this really comes from the ministry level side of things as well. So from the Department of Children, I suppose they recognise the value family resource centres have, and they provide funding for it. They've actually increased funding recently as well.
Oh, nice.
And we're looking, again, it's enough to keep things kind of just ticking over, but there are some family resource centres that are really struggling. I'll come to that in a sec. So obviously, if there's more money provided, I suppose the nature of the work that we can do can be extended.
Yeah.
But I suppose our main funders would be TUSLA. For a lot of family resource centres, the main funders are TUSLA. And I suppose they support us around the compliance side of things. So they make sure that we, well, not that they make sure, they support us in making sure that the service is professional, that the proper guidelines are in place. But I suppose in family resource centres like Mountmellick, we actually work quite closely with a couple of the teams within TUSLA as well. So where they're working with families who are really, really struggling and are engaging in the TUSLA service. And then we can come in and work alongside TUSLA as well to try support those families. I suppose what's a little bit unique about Mountmellick is that an awful lot of the work that we do is around youth work. So we're one of the only family resource centres to actually have youth in our title as well. So we're able to carry, remember earlier I said about the Youth Development Centre, we're able to carry that work. That work has stayed and has expanded. And then I suppose the work that you're doing in youth work, you can support a young person, but I suppose if they're going home into a family that's struggling, I suppose
it's tough.
It's tough. It can be tough, yeah. So I suppose if we go in there and help the family as well, by default you're supporting the young people on another level as well.
Yeah.
So I suppose how we try to do that wraparound approach, and again, every family resource centre is different. There's the closest one to us is Portlaoise.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is there one in Portlaoise?
There is one in Portlaoise. So
I lived in Portlaoise 24 years. I actually did not know.
Yeah, and the one in Portlaoise has been around a lot longer than we have.
Okay.
And even though they're just 7 or 8 miles down the road, the service they provide, even though some of them would be similar to us, to provide different types of services as well, because they're responding to the needs of Portlaoise, whereas we're responding to needs of people in Mountmellick. So what we do here is we've a breakfast and homework club, so we're hitting young people either side of school. That could be a stressful time for any family to try to get young people up and out the door in the morning, or try to get them home and get their homework done. But let's look at that family where there's additional maybe learning difficulties, or there's disability thrown in there, or we've discussed poverty as well. That makes that time a lot more difficult as well. So we look at supporting as many young people as can, but really looking at young people who and families who need that extra bit of support with them. Part of our universal services, we've after schools groups that run, I suppose, every day. And I suppose through those we begin to introduce young people to the process of youth work. So where we look at their personal and social development, we start to move towards helping them understand society and where to fit within society. And I suppose we don't give them leaflets or handouts or any of that sort of stuff.
You work with them.
We work with them.
Yeah.
And like I said, with my mum who helped me understand the ethics of getting out there and working, doing it yourself, we try to do bits and pieces of that, through youth groups as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose a lot of the work that we do, it's tried and tested. There's a theory backing it up, or it's evidence-based as well. So while young people might feel like, it's good fun and I enjoy going there and it's a chance to hang out with my friends, it is all of that. But we have program plans and session plans in place to create that environment that they can do it. And also,
it's not just a play centre.
No, exactly.
Right, because then at the end you're not really achieving anything. The child comes and play, and his reality when he comes home is different. It's
exactly.
Okay.
And it's looking at helping their development as well. We've teens groups as well, and I suppose with the teens group we go more into the social education side of things. And When I was involved as a volunteer leader, there's this story about the gold in a pile of poo, and how that's where a farmer hid his gold, and how he forgot where it was for a while, and it took him a while to find it, and he had to root through stuff to find it. Essentially, myself and the team, that's how we approach working with young people as well. That sometimes there might be an awful lot of other stuff going on around the young person, that they forget this little bit of gold that they have inside them, and forget how they can develop themselves or how they can help other people. And we create an environment that young people can get through that.
Yeah.
And one of the ways we do it, we've an incredible group of young people at the minute. They're teenagers who've just finished leadership training. And the majority would have been involved in the summer camps with us while they were young people, would have loved it. And now they want to go back and to support them as well. Yeah.
Wow.
But they had to train for it, you know. It wasn't just a case, oh, you want to do it, you're going to show up and do it. They had to understand the importance of being a leader. They had to understand the safety elements of it as well. You know, the safeguarding side of things and all of that. So, and I hope that, I suppose, they realise how important they are to the Mountmellick community and how they can give back. And I suppose there are times that adults within society, when they look at young people hanging around, and, you know, possibly some people would have the view that young people, when they've nothing to do, they're trouble, or they're going to get involved in antisocial behaviour. But the reality is there's very few places for young people to hang out anymore outside of home.
That's the thing.
So that's the thing. So I suppose with us, the next time an adult challenges a young person, says, look, what you doing hanging around here? Are you up to no good or whatever? They can say, look, this is my community.
Exactly.
I'm actually actively involved in it. I'm helping young people within my community. And it's okay, you know. So it's a different way of challenging back as well.
Yeah.
I suppose a lot of the work that we do with young people is around choices as well.
Okay.
So that they understand the choices that they can make, and I suppose the consequence of choices. So we try to help young people understand that, look, if you get up in the morning, you have your breakfast, you have your uniform on, your homework's done from the night before, you go into school, and it's a nicer day because, you know, you go in, you're prepared, you haven't just rushed out of bed in the morning. So the consequences of that, you know, you're, like I said, it's a nicer day in school versus you don't set your alarm, you're late out of bed, you don't have time to grab breakfast, so you're hangry going into school. Yeah, exactly. Your teacher's meeting you at the door and going, you know, where's your homework? You get given out to because your homework's not there. That makes you even angrier, maybe you act out a little bit. So there's consequences to that as well. So I suppose we help young people understand choices and consequences. And
tell me something, are the parents then involved?
Exactly. So I suppose we offer one-to-one support to parents as well. Okay. So where a parent or a guardian could come into us and say, look, I'm struggling with this thing or the next thing, and we try to put a plan in place around it.
Giving them guidance on how you can best...
We've community programs here as well, so people might come just for yoga or just for mindfulness and that, and it's a chance to, you know, for a bit of time for themselves as well if they're coming from a busy household. But I suppose through being involved in those type of programs, they're made aware of other types of support that we have in place as well. And they might choose to avail of, I suppose, more intense support. We also offer therapeutic support to parents and adults and to young people as well. So we've brief solution focused therapy as well as child psychotherapy or play therapy. So it's kind of, you can see how we try as much as possible to wrap around.
And does it mean that it's mostly based on people coming to you? Or maybe like you work with TUSLA, they might be aware of a situation and they say, can you work? Like, I suspect the reason why I'm asking this is that a lot of people go through things and they're afraid to bring it up. There's a lot of families that you won't be aware, but the children want to be helped, but because the parents would not want everything out there. So how do you even get to know if anybody needs help?
That's it. And this is why I'm so lucky with my team. And look, it happens in other family resource centres as well. So our background, we're qualified in social care, in youth work, in community development, special needs assistance as well. So we've people from a variety of different backgrounds. And the most important thing about our work is the relationship.
Yes.
It can be really difficult to ask for help. So what we try to do is create situations where people are aware we're here. Like, let's say the Saturday, for example, we had a family fun day, the county council, through Creative Ireland, we ran this thing called Crunnen and Og. And really the main point for that was just for young people and children from the town just to come. They were feeding sheep and holding rabbits, and Jekyll the Clown came over as well, you know. So that was the point of it. It was just people to come together and hang out. But we were there with these jumpers on, and we were going around introducing ourselves to people. And the amount of times people say, "Oh, we didn't even realise you'd done so much."
Okay.
You know, that we're chatting to people, and we make people aware of other services. So even though if I was to meet you at that event, there mightn't be anything that any type of support that you need, but you might be in conversation with a friend, or you might know a neighbour down the road who's struggling. And you can go, oh, we're aware of the Family Resource Centre there, and this is the type of work that they do. And I suppose we have to use that approach because the funding we have is limited. So if we really advertise, we could have an influx of people and not have the capacity to deal with it, you know. And then that can be negative as well, you know, that people say, oh, I went in there for support and nothing happened. So I suppose while we support as many people as we can, we look at quantity over quality, you know, that when someone comes here, like let's say, for example, the family support worker that's here, she could have a plan for the day. She could get a phone call and realise that there's a family really in dire needs. That could be her work for the whole week, you know. Whereas if we'd loads and loads of people coming in, what happens to the other people? How does she get to support them as well? And with young people as well, like we talk about the youth groups, and the youth groups last, you know, from 2 to 2.5 hours or up to 3 hours. But it's not just the youth work that happens. Sometimes outside of that, there's one-to-one work. While the full group's happening, there might be a young person who's really upset over something and they're supporting, and the phone call happens at home as well. So we try to have as many people as we can working with our youth groups, so that if there is other bits of support that people need during youth group time, that's provided, you know. And like I said, I keep mentioning my team, because they have the relationship with people, they can spot when someone is struggling, or they can spot
that's brilliant
when someone's under a bit of pressure. So sometimes to knock up to a door or walk up to a door and knock on it and say I need help and not know what's the other side, that can be a block.
Scary.
So our door's always there, it's always open, people can come through it, but we recognise that sometimes we have to go out and to let people know we're here. And it's not going out with a cape on saying we're here to help, you know, we're ready to help.
How can we help?
It's how can we help?
That's the best way,
Exactly, And I suppose there's people in our community come and volunteer as well. So they might have got some support off us in the past, and they come back and volunteer and help us with our homework club or whatever, you know. So the community do give back, and there's people regularly come and say, look, we want to donate.
And how does it take for people to volunteer? Like if someone decides, I want to support, do they have to have a specific qualification or? Not
to volunteer, no. To volunteer, you need to care, and you need to want to give back. So there is Garda vetting. There is an application process. There is an interview as well. It's very informal, but I suppose we make sure that anyone who comes in contact with another person who avails of our service, especially young people or people who are vulnerable, we need to make sure that they're the best possible person to access them. So there is a whole process around someone joining that is very formal and needs to happen from a legal perspective. But then there's the training bits and pieces and the support that people get when they're on the job as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose people can learn from that and develop their own skills in particular areas as well.
So tell me something. We can walk through a little bit of some of the service, how it works. What's the day? So you have a child and family wellbeing.
Yeah.
And then you have poverty eradication.
Yes.
Community health and well-being.
Yeah.
Lifelong learning through community education.
Yeah.
Community cohesive and social inclusion. That's quite a lot.
It's quite a lot.
Yeah,
and I suppose
you have 7 pillars.
Yeah, yeah.
And are you able to, with the resource that you have, able to, so we can talk through some of those pillars if you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's nice to know when people hear about it, they not to know exactly what kind of help can you give.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I suppose when you look at those pillars, they're the pillars that go throughout all the family resource centres.
Okay.
But what we do within those pillars would be slightly different. So I suppose in relation to child and family well-being, we look at early intervention. So I suppose if it's a thing that a family is left unsupported, the issues can increase, and the length of times it takes to support a family around that can be longer. And the impact can be more detrimental as well. So where it can really affect the health side of things, and it can head into intergenerational need for support as well. So ourselves, when we're working with TUSLA, it's as early as possible to get in there.
That's where TUSLA comes in, because you wouldn't know much about how early you need to work with someone. So TUSLA will bring the clients, maybe, is it? How does that work?
In some cases, I suppose with TUSLA, it's normally they also have an early intervention model, but I suppose a lot of the referrals that we get through TUSLA is when things have escalated.
Yeah.
So when it's got to a stage where you need a state agency coming in.
Okay.
What we try to do, like if we weren't here, the amount of referrals that would go into TUSLA would vastly increase.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, while we do refer some families into TUSLA where there's a need for more people to be involved in an intervention, I suppose our work, because we hit families so early, we prevent things from escalating to a stage where. And
are the family responsive? Are they okay with you referring? Because for those who don't know, TUSLA is a government organization.
Yeah.
Where social workers are involved, right?
Exactly.
So do people now find it nice when you kind of refer to TUSLA, or do they see it as a betrayal, or how does that work? You know where I'm going, yeah?
I do. So look, the majority of, the very, very, very vast majority of people wants what's best.
Good.
For their young people.
Okay.
And obviously in the media, we see cases where that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And we believe that that happens more than it actually does. But from my experience, the absolute vast majority of people wants what's absolute best for their young person. So in relation to a portrayal for if we were to go to TUSLA,
they don't see it that way.
No, because we work in partnership with them. It's kind of hand in hand, and we're not doing it for them. We're not saying, right, you go to TUSLA, or I'm going to tell TUSLA about you. Yeah, you're in trouble. It's about TUSLA as an organisation exists. This is the type of support that they can offer that we can't. So again, we work in partnership with them to get that support. But like I said, as much as possible, through young people being involved in groups here, through being involved in therapy, I suppose we look at the child and family well-being and prevent things from escalating.
And I see poverty eradication. Like if I hear this, I'm kind of thinking, oh, this is good. Yeah. So, but it doesn't mean what it means, right? You're not changing the social status or financial status of someone, but you support them how?
I suppose let's keep it really simple. So the most basic one that we work with here in Mountmellick, or should be the most basic, is around period poverty, or period dignity as it's called. So that for a young girl to grow up, obviously periods happen, and if you've lack of access to money, you could not be able to access the sanitary products that need to go with it.
That's amazing.
There's the hygiene side that goes with that as well. And then I suppose if your peers are aware that you're struggling with hygiene, that can be something that can be used against you as well. So one of the things we do here is make people aware that period poverty is a thing, move towards period dignity, and give people access to the products that they need. That in some cases it's free and are at low cost. We had a group of teenagers actually put together period packs to help other young people who were starting off with a period, and it was brilliant. They had these teddies that you could put in a white microwave to heat up. So if you're struggling with cramps, it had chocolate. As a man, I never would have thought of that. It's like loads of chocolate, loads of sweets, loads of sugar in there as well to look at the kind of, you know, the just minding yourself through that. So like, I suppose there are the other bits of poverty that do exist, and our family support worker would work with that. So when you're looking at the cost of living, access to housing,
that is gone crazy. Like this morning again on the radio, they were talking about rental situation in the country, and the fact that we don't have enough housing.
Exactly.
You know, social housing. Now, there's been improvement in Ireland, by the way. So this year we've seen a lot of building of social housing, but there's still a long way, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And again, look, you could have a family of 8 people living in a 3-bedroom house. So you can imagine the challenge that goes with that. And I suppose the hidden homeless as well. So obviously people think homeless is where people are sleeping and living on the streets, but I suppose we'd have a couple of families where they're living with their sister, while they're trying to get access to
even the parents.
To our house.
People are going back to parents' houses.
Whereas it be going back to parents' houses, all that sort of stuff. You know, you have young people who, you know, the way I said, you moved away from college or moved away to college and all of that. So to do the whole education side of things, they're ready to move away to college, but they realise that moving to a big city, you're looking at thousands of euros for the 9 months that you're in college, and that can be enough to get people stuck.
I had to get my daughter to come back home because she couldn't. It's another story.
Yeah.
So the lifelong learning. Actually, did we talk about the community health and well-being?
No,
what does that look like?
Yeah. I suppose what we try to do in relation to that is looking at the positive mental health side of things and helping people, including ourselves. Jesus, when you're supporting people through stuff, you pick up bits and pieces yourself. So I suppose it's looking at the positive mental health and how much control as an individual you can do that. So sometimes, you know, poor mental health is something that is done to you. You know, it's circumstantial, but by connecting with people, getting out with your friends, going for a walk, eating healthily. I suppose if you do use alcohol, cutting that out or reducing it. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do to support your mental health.
Okay.
But we also recognise that no matter what some people do, mental health and mental illness is an issue. So I suppose looking at the mental health side of things, I've mentioned the therapy that we provide to people as well, and other FRCs. Actually, the majority of FRCs would provide some level of therapeutic support. I think out of the 121, I think 85 or 90 FRCs provide therapeutic support, because if you're trying to help someone to develop personally or socially or whatever,
that bit needs to be part.
That bit needs to be part of it as well.
Would you say it's one of the most instrumental parts of the work?
100%. Yeah. Because if anyone's struggling with their mental health,
everything else is affected.
Everything else kind of goes down, and whether that's your role as a parent or your role as a student in school or your role as a friend, all the bits and pieces can struggle as well. So like I said, it's early intervention. We get in there as early as possible. But I suppose what we have in funding for is social prescribing, and there are a number of FRCs, especially in the southwest of the country. They employ social prescribers as part of their team, and I suppose what that is it's recognising the link between physical health and mental health. So where you might have someone who's elderly and has been in hospital for a while, and to come back out into their community, it's looking at what they need to have in place to be set up within their community. I suppose it looks at isolation and the loneliness that go with it, and trying to get people back involved in their community as well. So
that's quite a lot of work you guys are doing here.
It is, yeah. And I
so how many staff do you have? Like, because this is, I mean, I know Mountmellick is a small place, but I think there's more than few 2,000 families here.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not saying all the 2,000 family needs help, but you never know. Like, that's
exactly
amazing.
Look, It's amazing. So look, we've a team. When we have a full team, there's 13 of us all together.
Okay.
So some of us were funded through TUSLA core funding, it's called.
Okay.
So it's one of our funding streams. We're one of the lucky family resource centres that we've local TUSLA funding as well. So that's where we get funding to do the family support side of work. And then through the department, through PUBL, we get some funding for our youth work as well.
Yeah.
The local schools, they're DESH schools as well. They provide funding for us to go in and do the breakfast club and homework clubs. And then through the Department of Social Protection, we get money for healthy eating as well. So everyone, especially young people, when they come into us, they're fed, because for us to do any of our work, there's no point in people being hungry.
Yeah.
For our youth groups, they actually get a hot meal each day as well. So again, that eases the pressure at home as well.
And are they going to school and they come here after school? Is it more after school program you work on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So like we do some stuff during the day. So where we've parents who maybe are working part-time jobs or aren't working, we run programs during the day for them. We've a parent toddler group as well.
Okay.
Where some people who attend aren't parents, they're guardians or grannies or carers. They're minding the child, so they come in as well. I've lost track of the point I was trying to make there. I suppose. Oh yeah. So during the day we have programs as well. For people who aren't attending work or education, or whatever, during the day. Our work with young people, yes, that happens either side of school.
Okay.
So that's kind of early evening work.
Yeah.
And then for parents or adults, wherever, we do late evening work then as well. So where the child or the young person is home from school, if there's a second carer or parent or whatever at home, then that other carer can come out and do work as well. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
A lot of the work we do as well is around community integration. So while I was growing up in Mountmellick, it was predominantly Irish people who, and in many cases, both of their parents would have been from Mountmellick as well.
Yeah.
Whereas now we've very much an intercultural.
We talked about that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing an awful lot of integration work as well. So I suppose at the minute we have funding to employ a community integration worker. That money is will finish at the end of this year. So the work she's doing is very much going out meeting with people who would have maybe grown up in the Ukraine, grew up in Nigeria, grew up in the Lebanon, and are now living in Mountmellick. Exactly, to bring them in, I suppose, to create a sense of community with them as well, for them to get to know people from other cultures, including Irish.
Yeah.
But I suppose when that funding ends, we want that work to continue. Do you know what I mean? So it gives us the opportunity for
reapply or
to
maybe
get out. Hopefully this funding stream will finish, so we can't reapply under that.
Oh, okay.
So we have to look at other ways for this work to continue as well, and we hope that it will continue, because it's very much. It's an important part. Integration is a massive part of the work that family resource centres do as well. So
one thing that really caught my attention in one of your pillars, we do have 7 there, I think. Yeah, but one of the things that caught my attention is the community safety and crime prevention.
Yeah.
So what is that?
It can be a number of different things, but I suppose how we look at it in Mountmellick is, again, back to that early intervention.
Yeah.
And it's mad, I saw that, I was rooting through this morning to have a few bits prepared to talk about.
I'm sorry, I'm giving you homework there.
But we just finished a programme called a Copping On programme, okay?
Okay.
And again, this is back to the model of early intervention and, I suppose, informal education as well. So where we help, remember I said the choices and consequences, so we help young people to understand, let's say the example of fighting. So someone called you a name, whether they've been racist or discriminatory, or using a piece of information about you that you shared with them, and now they're using it against you. As a young person, there's a number of different ways you can handle it.
Okay.
One of the things is to go back to that trust an adult that we talked about, or people in your life that can help you challenge it. You can verbally try to challenge back in a constructive way, but also you can meet like for like and maybe be abusive back, or maybe throw a punch.
Yeah, which happens quite
which
a
does
lot.
happen.
Yeah.
And I suppose the consequence to throwing that punch means you could be heading down a legal road.
Yeah.
And I suppose the guards have a number, like there's community guards and Garda juvenile liaison people there as well to help young people if they get to that level. But we're all about, again, early intervention, and then if we need outside people.
And how does that work out? So, for example, what level do you get involved in this kind of situation? Well, is it like coaching, mentoring, or
exactly.
is it like
it's informal education programs as well? So where we facilitate different workshops, and facilitation is the important thing as well. You know, that we're not standing up there preaching. It's about creating a discussion or creating an environment where young people can talk about stuff. And sometimes young people say things that are inaccurate or are wrong, or because of their background to say something that's actually discriminatory or not true.
Yeah.
So in a nice way, you can challenge that back. You know, without giving out to young people, you can challenge that back and try help educate them as well. So the thinking there is that if people grow up in a society where they understand what needs to be in place to operate within society, so to develop socially as well as personally and emotionally, it can result in a reduction of crime. With the group that done that Copping On program, it went right to a prison visit in Limerick only a few weeks ago. So I suppose
just to give you a taste of what happened.
We helped them understand, as well as the
consequences.
As well as the prison officer that brought us around.
Yeah.
He did talk about consequences, but he said, now he didn't have a study in front of him, but he reckons between 92 to 95% of people who are in prison, addiction is an issue. And their crime was linked back to either being under the influence of something and doing something silly, or needing to get involved in crime to feed an addiction as well. So now I haven't looked into the study, that could be inaccurate, but that's kind of where the conversation went on the day as well. So I suppose that helps young people understand that the first time you take a drink of alcohol, or the first time you smoke an illegal drug or whatever, it mightn't affect your health straight away. You mightn't get arrested straight away, and there's
long term.
Yeah, sometimes you can get a sense of being invincible. You know, that's fine. I've done it. I haven't ended up an addict. I haven't ended up in trouble with the guards, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's to help young people realise that sometimes it can happen at a younger age. Sometimes it might take a while before you realise the impact of using substances as well. Yeah. So again, what we try to do is around the education side of things.
Okay.
We in Mountmellick, we've received a number of different awards around youth participation as well, and parent participation. So a lot of the work we do, we put a program in place off the back of something that a young person or a parent has told us as well. So when I say each FRC is individual, it's because we have the link into our community, and they either tell us or give us an overview of what's going on. So we put stuff in place to meet that need. So look, addiction is an issue in Mountmellick, and crime is an issue in Mountmellick, as with a lot of other communities. So as much as possible, we get in at the prevention side of things, but also we work, like our community guards are excellent. We work very closely with them. And there's a diversion program or project in Mountmellick as well. So we'd work alongside them as well to try.
But you're in for a fight.
Yeah.
With drugs, with this substance, because we can only help, we can only try to prevent and carry caution, but a lot of times it's the children themselves and the family needs to have a foot on the ground that this is not to happen in their home, but it's hard.
It is.
Because there are people, we have to fight the people selling.
Exactly.
And the threat they put onto children, and also the curiosity that the children have, oh, maybe I can try this and all that. So how do you see drugs and that part of the work being successful in the long run? Do you see an improvement, or do you see that it's still a challenge?
It's still a challenge.
Okay.
But I suppose if you go, in our case, if you go at it from a community development approach, where you don't see yourself as working on your own to try solve the problem, that can have more of an impact. And I suppose
I like that.
In Mountmellick, like when you look at the interagency side of things, we've so many different agencies that are singing off the same hymn sheet. What we try to do is come together as much as possible and say, right, as a school, if you're working off, obviously they've the curriculum side of things as well.
Yeah.
But schools do so much outside of just curriculum as well. So if a school is running a program around something, then we look at a different aspect and run a program around that. And the LOETB do something different, or the Laois Partnership do something different, you know. So I suppose it's about, rather than it's looking at value for money. So it's recognising that a lot of services are underfunded. So the last thing you want to do is go out and do something that another agency are doing.
So you kind of work in collaboration with different places. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant.
Are there other organizations here that support? What different type of organization that might support in some areas?
Exactly. Look, they're all like, if I just hold this up for a sec.
That's no problem. Yeah.
So this is a graphic. I think this was a young person's idea.
Yeah, as a puzzle. Yeah. So we're looking into the partnership there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like each one of these jigsaw puzzles is a service that operates from Mountmellick.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's recognising that no matter what the issue is, if it is drugs and alcohol, if it is mental health, that in order to see the full picture that is Mountmellick, all these little pieces of the jigsaw need to work together as much as possible. And I think we have it right in Mountmellick. You know, I think there's really powerful stuff that's happening, and we have that relationship. Like, we might have some young people or some adults that avail of a few different services. Let's say a young person, for example, they could be in school, they could be part of the local boxing club. They also could come into us after school. They might be involved with therapy as well, you know. So it's about recognising that there's loads of people that can help. It's that phrase, it takes a village to raise a child.
Exactly.
I think that's what we're trying to do in Mountmellick and work together with people.
I'm so overwhelmed listening to this, because I have that sense. And the fact that it's not even, people are not aware of it is a bit strange, right?
Yeah.
Because when you hear this, it builds a sense of hope. There's time I feel hopeless for the kids, but it's nice to know that most areas in Ireland have something there available, and that people just not be ashamed to come and reach out to you guys and say, hey, I need help here, right?
Exactly.
Because a lot of people go through things on their own.
Exactly, they do.
And I think as a parent, in fairness, there's a little bit of pride there. So if I come to you, I feel like I fell, right? So do you have something in place to reassure me that no, you haven't failed, but that the step that I'm taking to seek for help is actually acknowledging that I need help? So how do you walk the parent through that? Because we always feel embarrassed.
Exactly. I think anyone who's been lucky enough to be a parent feels that they're failing in some aspect.
Exactly.
And when you help people realise that they're trying their absolute best, when you help people realise that so many other people feel exactly the same and are going through what they're going through, that can help people. And I suppose that's what happens in our groups as well. That they might be coming to do, like I said, yoga or to do arts and crafts or whatever. But in that conversation, there might be two people who have young people who are on the spectrum, and they say, oh, I'm struggling with this, and they get it off their chest. And they're like, oh, my son was the exact same. When he was 12, he was going through something similar to you, and this is what I done to help. And this is the service I use. So people will more likely engage in a service when it comes through word of mouth rather than an advertisement.
That's true.
And that's what we try to do as well, you know. Yeah,
that's true, because I remember I told you one of my eldest is on the spectrum, has autism, and I remember going to one of the parent family group years ago. And it was so weird because I went in there to find how I can learn a little bit more about this new, there's never been any form of autism in my whole family generation.
Right.
And it was like, he was kind of the first, he was like, who is this, what's going on? And I remember going there to figure out, okay, if I speak to other people about what's going on with him, I would probably get some information. But the funny thing, what I learned during those conversations was more about the sibling. His twin brother or the siblings who's come almost like most parents there were talking more about the sibling than the child who has autism. How they're struggling with the siblings because the siblings is feeling the mental health of the siblings is affected. Because you know this whole thing about this, the person who's closer in age to the child feel that sense of responsibility, feel that sense of guilt, whatever. It changed my life into seeing his twin brother differently. He's not a shadow anymore.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So there's a good side of coming into places like this and to talk to people and not be afraid. Yeah.
And it's really interesting that you say that because we'd have a number of different parents, mainly mothers, who'd come with the same type of challenge. And I suppose through our youth groups, we can help, in your case, like the twin brother.
Exactly.
Be part of a group, develop their own identity that's outside of the home as well, and realise, you know, that there's so much that they can do to help with their own development. But there's a really exciting thing that we're getting up and running in September. Some of the other FRCs already have it in place, but one of the women I work with, a few of the women I work with, there was a lot of mums coming to them saying, I'm just at my wit's end. So the term is neurodivergent, so it's all those letters, you know, the ADHD, ASD, all of that, and how much of a challenge people are having, and how parents feeling like they're failing them because there's only so much that they can do. There's lack of access to services, all that sort of stuff. So what we're looking to do is bring together a group of parents that it's a chance for them to share their learnings. It might mean bringing in outside people as well to try help with the learnings and what, I suppose, what they could do at home to help their young person with all those letters after their name. But ideally, it's a chance for them to just have a cup of tea or coffee
and relax.
And relax. Okay. But what will make this, what we hope will help with this, is that, like, for a parent to take that time for themselves, that young person still exists and their needs still exist. It doesn't go away for the hour and a half, that or 2 hours or whatever it would be. So what we're looking to do with this up and coming initiative is that while the parents are together, we'll actually have a youth worker who will meet with the young person, ideally run a youth group if it's a thing to have the capacity to operate within that setting. We've got funding through the National Lottery as well, so we'll work with those young people and their families as well to buy equipment to help with the kind of sensory stuff that comes with all those letters as well. So in an ideal world, it'll be a youth group. But again, it's looking at if it's a thing we can get them into our other groups as well. So it's that integration bit. So we don't have a group of young people that could end up being labelled. It's about getting them back involved in other groups as well.
In the other groups,
and within their community.
Yeah, because it can be challenging for people with neurodiversity and the other different. It can be challenging to put them together, because I know, for example, anything can trigger my son. You know? You never know what can, by trying to help you, make it worse if you don't know exactly. Do you work with therapists as well, and do they support you or?
Yes, you do, and I suppose we get outside funding for therapy as well. Occupational therapy would be through CAMS in Portlaoise, so we look at getting the family to go to the GP and make the referral that way. But in-house, we have therapists as well. I mentioned those earlier as well.
The different type of therapy.
Exactly, but we provide that's free to families as well. And I suppose what I wanted to say about that, I forgot to say it earlier, is that there are therapeutic resources that are free to families in Portlaoise. But there can be a lack of access as well. So if people don't have access to transport, or let's say, for example, there's a town link, which is a really good service. It's a bus that runs from here to Mountmellick and other towns as well. But if you're going to a session and you're you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable to look at the issues that's going on for you. You're upset by that, and then you have to use public transport to come back. That can be an issue. So we're lucky enough that TUSL and other services that provide funding for therapy, we got some money through dormant accounts as well. That means that it's free. It's in Mountmellick. It's in our building as well.
Okay.
That people know and are familiar.
And they can just walk.
Exactly, yeah. And if we've time before we finish the interview, like the other half of this room, we're just looking at a plain wall, is kind of where people sit down, and it's purposely white and relaxed and just a bit of lighting as well. But some young people were saying that it's too plain, that you're asking me to think, think abstractly and think, to use art therapy or whatever. It's too plain for that. So we got some young people who came in and they designed a room and they put inspirational quotes as well. Yeah. But on the roof there's little handprints as well, and that was done a good few years ago now at this stage. Yeah. So that's to show that young people are literally leaving their mark here, and this is where they belonged. Yeah. And where they continue to belong. Yeah. So I suppose that's a visual of what we're trying to do here as well. But I suppose when you're talking about your son as well, I was thinking about other work that we do here, and I suppose myself and the team, what we always work towards is for people to reach their full potential, whatever that is. And sometimes society sets that bar, and it might be too high for some people to reach. So we just really, help people to understand that if you do the best you can do,
the best they can,
exactly. And that's all anyone can do.
Isn't that amazing to know that there is a service like that available, and that's what is needed right now? Because during the COVID, there was an afflux on mental health, right? It was just so weird how people start realizing the issues they each other have, even me, myself, right? You go on through life, there's a lot of high expectation on life. There's people suffer in silence because we were coming out of the Celtic Tiger, the boom of the 90s, where everybody has to succeed, success. And you come back to realize that life is just about the simple things. And people suffer in silence because they're just struggling in their mental health, they're struggling with issues, and they can't talk to anybody because you're ashamed. And to know that there's a place where you can find a bit of solace and a sense of relief, and that is happening in each town, and nobody knows about it. Like I'm ashamed sitting down here. I raised a special needs child, and I never know that there was one in Portlaoise. Now I don't know if someone was supposed to tell me, or I wasn't looking for it. I don't know, but if I knew to look for it, it would be great. Yeah. So what would you say for people like me or other families, Irish or non-Irish, would actually oblivious of what this type of service around the country? How do they go to get about it?
Yeah. So the simplest way is if you have access to a phone or a computer with internet on it, it's to look up the National Forum of Family Resource Centres, and there is a website there where there's like a map of Ireland, and there's little pins of where each of the family resource centres are located. Yeah. And it's as simple as clicking out one of those pins and it'll give you the contact details as well. What a lot of family resource centres are good at is social media side of things. So
they do?
Yeah, Instagram and Facebook. Brilliant. Yeah, so
good to know.
I suppose when you see the written word, it might be difficult to understand exactly what family resource centre do, but if you were to scroll through social media and see photographs and people involved in programs, you'll have a better understanding of the work that family resource centres do. As well, in communities where there are family resource centres, I mentioned about interagency work in Mountmellick, family resource centres work that way. So it's just, I suppose, it's about talking to someone who you trust in an agency or in a school or whatever, and they could direct you towards a family resource centre as well. Yeah. So, but the National Forum website has all the different
information.
Yeah, exactly, and it talks. There's a brief overview of what service each family resource centre offer,
and with all the pillars that they talked about. We can actually have a quick, I can actually read through the quick pillars, because people would hear about Family Resource Centre, but they wouldn't understand the different pillars of why. So we have the child and family well-being, poverty eradication, in which we explained a little bit more before, community health and well-being, lifelong learning through community education, community cohesive and social inclusion.
Yeah.
And we have community safety and crime prevention. That's my favorite one, by the way. And climate change and a broader biodiversity and just transition, right?
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. So we didn't talk about all the pillars, but we've spoken about the main pillars so far.
Yeah.
Now in here, you say that you're one of the resource center that also focus a little bit more on youth.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that the adult can't be also supported, right?
Oh no, we do an awful lot of work around working with adults as well. Yeah, as well, and that's through the one-to-one, through family support, and through the community initiatives that we look to target adults as well. So it's been a very interesting conversation, both of us. Now, what's your vision, you and your team? Because I know you really enjoy explaining that your team, it's not a one-man job, right? You had an amazing team, up to 13 people, you say, sometimes. So what is your vision as a group for this organization here? What do you want? What do you see as a key success factor? Yeah, and I was just to say about the team that sometimes when you're a manager, you know, when it comes to the launch of stuff or for podcasts or whatever it might be, you're the one that is there, and you know, it's almost like sometimes I feel like I just show up to talk about the work, and then the credit is put to the face of the person who's making that presentation. My work is to support the team. They're the ones that do the work.
Good.
And they're the ones out there making such a difference in the Mountmellick community. And I suppose I count myself really lucky to have the team that I have around me, and I suppose I feel proud to say I'm their manager, and I can take some of the credit for the work that they do.
But they're the ones, reflects leadership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they're out there doing the work. And I suppose what we're trying to do. Do you mind if I read something just really quick?
No,
because
go
I think
ahead.
this summarises what we're trying to do. So
the mystery.
I suppose our organisational vision, it's written down here. It wouldn't be the exact words that I'd use if I was going to say it in conversation, but I think it really summarises what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So our vision is that all children, young people, families and communities will actively participate and be included in a society that is free from prejudice, inequality, discrimination and exclusion, and which will contribute to the greatest possible well-being.
That sums up.
I think that really summarises what we're trying to do. And if I was to add my own words to it, I've said it earlier, it's to support people to reach their full potential and whatever they see as their goal, to try help them achieve that. And I think no matter what member of the team, of my team that you talk to, that use their own words, something along the lines of that. Because I think brilliant. Regardless of any programme we're putting in place or session or initiative that we're doing or directing people to other services, we're all doing it to try help with that vision.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been a good pleasure. Thank you, everyone who listened. We are looking forward to have you back next time on the GSTV. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.